Welcome into Locked On Seminoles. I am Brian Smith. We're doing a live show tonight, and we're going to be talking about Florida State and Alabama. Is Alabama really a 13.5-point favorite? We're going to talk about it here on Locked On Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. And today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. The Florida State Seminoles are still a 13.5-point underdog at home in Doak Campbell Stadium to Alabama. That'll be the feature of the show. We'll get to that in just a moment. We're also going to talk about the impact players for Florida State in the freshman class, including at least one guy that is expected to start, possibly more. It's been a good recruiting year for Florida State coming in with this group. Some guys that enrolled early are doing well, and one who may start didn't even enroll until this summer. Going to break down the key players, including some redshirt freshmen and stuff too. It's a lot of fun to talk about the new guys that are kind of breaking through and the new generation of Florida State football. We're also going to talk about the schedule pitfalls beyond the Alabama game. And to finish off, Miami. Are you buying the hype? I'm starting to look over some of the ACC teams, and I want to talk about Miami tonight. I'm not sure I'm buying the hype on the Hurricanes. So let's start off with the discussion about the Alabama Crimson Tide being, quote unquote, by FanDuel, a 13.5-point favorite over the Florida State Seminoles. Do you really buy that? I don't, and I have a couple of major reasons why. Feel free to jump in the chat and make your comments known. I'll get to those here in a few minutes. I will absolutely go through and read your commentary. And if you have something else you want me to talk about on a show, or if you have a comment from another show, again, fire away. But here's the number one reason that I'm not buying it. Florida State's roster is just better than it was last year. And I'm not talking entirely about physical skill. They're more bought in. Last year, Florida State's team was about as far from bought in to a team concept as you can be. That's from people that I've spoken to. That's from people that I've spoken to who some cover the team and some that are kind of around it. And you can just tell by the body language on the field, like you didn't need contacts to know that. They weren't bought in. Based on what's been going on through spring practice, summer conditioning, and just the little bit of workouts they get to do with the coaches, I haven't heard anything about locker room concern, the locker room chatter about, who's got the most in. It's not the same way. That is the biggest reason, in my opinion, that Florida State will be more competitive with any team they play. Forget the situation with Alabama. If you're not bought in, it doesn't matter what your talent is, because if you're a 5-tool player, but you're only given 80%, you're not a 5-tool player. Florida State has more advantages this year because they're more congruent, and that's going to pay dividends. In conjunction with that, the second point, and this is my other major reason, we can get into matchups a little bit with Bama in a second. It's just the coaching staff is better. I'm not trying to be mean, but they made upgrades, especially I think at defensive coordinator. I don't think that's competitive. I think Florida State made a major upgrade. Now, you can argue, and I've even argued this point, I try to show both sides of the coin and be fair. Florida State is bringing in a new coordinator with a very different scheme. That makes me nervous. But Tony White is very well renowned as a coach, A, and B, he's turned around teams in year one at other places in at least certain categories, like areas they needed to take that step forward. The prime example I use most often with Coach White, when they went from Syracuse to Nebraska, the first year they were there, they were the number 9 rush defense in the country. And I know they were in the Big Ten West where quarterbacks go to die. I get it. So you could stack the box a little more. But Nebraska doesn't have top 10 talent defensively in any category. They just don't. And they were still in the top 10. You've got to give some kudos there. Did they have top 30 defensive talent? Sure. Sure, they recruit well enough, and those kids, especially from that area, they redshirt, they stay the course, they don't leave the program. They play with a lot of juniors, seniors, fifth-year seniors. Okay. But do they have the skill that Florida State has? No, they don't. They don't have the same speed. They sure as heck don't have a Darrell Jackson Jr. in the middle at nose guard. Not even anything close, KJ Sampson or anybody like that. Sampson isn't necessarily a lock to start for Florida State. He might be their most physically gifted D lineman if he was at Nebraska as a pure down lineman. Florida State's a different animal. So we go back to the original question. Can they take that step forward in learning the scheme? I don't know. That's the one big question mark. You just got to see it on game day against Alabama and what will be year 2 for DeBoer. He brings back his coordinator, but it's the same offense. The coordinator just helps him more at the coach. It's the least change of any team in college football by adding a coordinator is Alabama, because it's the same group, and those guys have worked with each other 10 plus years, I believe. So they're in a good spot. But Florida State's defense turns the ball over. It's very active, and it's got the size needed to run a 2-gap or a 1-gap system on any play. I think 13.5 is too much. That's just my opinion, mainly because of the defense. We can talk about the offense here in a few minutes. I'll get into that some more. But I want this to be 45 minutes, an hour, just like most of the live shows here on Locked On Seminoles. And I'm not going to shy away if Alabama's got fans in here that want to ask questions or go right ahead. I'm not going to be mad. I get it. Alabama is better. I think Alabama will beat Florida State. That's my guess. They have more talent, and it's only year 2 for DeBoer, but having their system installed already should help Ty Simpson a little bit, I would imagine, but we'll see. Further on, before I get into the comments in the chat, I just think Florida State kind of wants to play loose. They had all that pressure from last year, and this is just kind of an additional thing I just thought about. All that pressure from last year, they were really bad. That's just been heaped on them over and over again, yours truly included. It was deserved. They're going to play pretty free. They're going to play with house money and nothing to lose. That's an advantage, especially in front of your home crowd in a renovated, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the renderings and all that, it was good. But sometimes the renderings from like when reconstruction happens, it doesn't end up looking that way. Florida State Stadium, Doak Campbell looks amazing. They've done a great job. So it ought to be a really lit atmosphere when Alabama comes to town for the afternoon game on August 30th. When we come back, I'm going to get into the chat. We're going to talk about Florida State's offense, the extension of why I think they can be very competitive with Bama. And again, I just don't see Bama blowing Florida State out, although a very prominent Florida State alum thinks that Alabama will blow the Noles out. We'll talk about that as well next here on Locked On Seminoles. Most people can't even name their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401k, properties, investments of any kind. And when you don't have a full picture of what you're worth and what you have, that's not going to be very good. That's where Monarch Money comes into play. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money, even without touching a spreadsheet. It's always good to get everything in one spot so you're not missing something, and you can see where you're spending money that you may not have known about, subscriptions you don't need. There's a lot of different things like that. Plus, just where should I move my money? If you've got it in one spot with Monarch, it makes it a little bit easier to save cash for the long term. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please hit that like, hit that subscribe, and make sure you share this podcast and comment down below. It helps the algorithm. If you're on Apple, please make sure you've got it set up for automatic downloads. I'm going to jump in the chat, and while I'm doing so, I'm going to add in some of my own commentary regarding what's going on with the Florida State offense. A couple of interesting additions are going to be in the starting lineup. We're going to talk about some freshmen. That's going to be fun as well. So I'm just going to start from the top. I've got quite a few people who have already already into the chat. So, Jason, what's going on, man? How you doing? Glad to see you. Rock and Roll says, evening to everyone. How you doing, sir? We got Georgie. Afternoon, sir. Good to see you, Brian. Appreciate it. I'm glad you came in to say hello tonight. I see Charles Wester is off the team. Is Charles off the team? I don't know if he is, but I know that, let's go ahead and mention this. Conrad Hussey is leaving the team. I assume that's who you're talking about. And Rock and Roll says, yes, Conrad Hussey. I'll talk about that here in a minute. Let's see what else we got. The writer says the same thing. Hussey, Jason Purdue. Tony White called him out without saying his name, and he knew it. Probably so. I'm guessing there's a lot of guys in that category. When players don't get along with what the coaches want, vice versa, sometimes you just got to cut bait. And it may be better for Hussey. I know him. He's a good guy. I don't know what happened. I haven't spoken to him, but that kind of surprised me. Let's see. Georgie. I don't buy the spread. Ask Bama fans and they think the spread isn't big enough. Bama fans always think that. They always think they're winning by 50. It's Bama fans. Some more pessimistic FSU fans think the same. I could potentially see a scenario that will follow this comment. Well, here's the deal. Fans are fans. And remember, fan is short for fanatic in regards to Bama fans. And they're spoiled. They're not going to accept that Saban is no longer the coach there. And I think DeBoer is very good. He's still not Nick Saban. So Bama is going to drag FSU for 3.5 number. Jackson got pushed around by Georgia Tech. I don't know what that even means. That's Matthew somebody, probably a Bama fan. Whatever. But I highly doubt they're going to get pushed around for 3.5, whatever that means. Rock and Roll, what was your take on Coach White's PC yesterday? Do you think it was coach speak or some frustration? I think he's pretty direct. I don't think it was any coach speak. He's agitated with some guys because they're not doing what they're being asked to do. He's an A to B black and white guy. Yes or no. He's not a gray area. He's not one of those guys hands out a multiple choice test that says both. The answer is, if the answer is 5, the answer is 5. The answer is 8, the answer is 8. He didn't name names, but based on what he did say on some names and how he kind of went through certain positions, certain ways, I think he's mad at certain players in the very front of the defense and the very back. Now, Hussey just left, so pretty obvious he was one of them. How many more, I don't know. But he hasn't mentioned Shaheem Brown in a while. I'm guessing he's one of them because he was a guy that started last year. I think he's the leading returning tackler for the Noles off the top of my head. How many of those guys are there? How many more players will Florida State lose, if any, before fall camp ends? I don't know. But overall, I just want to make a basic statement. We know Florida State's not winning a national title this year. Let's be realistic. But it's a good thing to get this stuff out now instead of the middle of the season. You still have time in fall camp to give guys more reps. Maybe it's Ashton Barker. Maybe it's I don't know if they cross-train, make up for the reps in the back. KJ Kirkland takes reps at multiple. So I have no idea. But they'll have options because they have time to do it. You don't want this to happen on the Tuesday before the Bama game. Then you're in a hole because you don't have time to try people out. It's game time. You need it now. Like, this is kind of too late, but at least there's more than a week before the game. So you have some opportunity to get the guys in the lineup and set it up. Maybe they move somebody. Again, I don't know. But as far as him being politically correct, I don't think Coach White will be very good at that during his career. It's one of the reasons I think he'll be a good head coach sooner rather than later. Florida State fans shouldn't get used to him. I think he'll be in FSU a couple of years, and he'll be a head coach. I just think he has the right moxie for the position. We'll see. Let's see what happened to Hussey. I don't know why, and I doubt we get any details. That's my guess. Matthew, Bama's O-line will push FSU around. I highly doubt that. If there's one thing I'm confident in this game, whoever you are, Matthew, that is not going to happen. Florida State is massive up front, and they got a ton of athletes. If you want to say Florida State will make errors, mental errors, and Bama gets running yards like that, fire away. Florida State's not going to get pushed around. Georgie, it's a potentially one possession late in the third, maybe they're up 10 going to the fourth. Then they pull away towards the end, scoring twice more in the last 6 minutes, making it a 3-score deficit. I could see something like that if Florida State just absolutely lays an egg, but they'd have to turn the ball over a couple times. Let's be clear. Until otherwise proven, Ty Simpson is a game manager. That's what he is because he's never played. You can't say he's a stalwart in any way, shape, or form. And there's been no reports of him coming out of Tuscaloosa like he's unbelievable. So I'm not buying that they're winning big. I'm just not. Florida State could shoot themselves in the foot and hand it to Bama. I don't think Bama's going to run them off the field or push them around or anything else. Whoever this Matthew guy is, dude, you're an idiot if you think that I'm going to buy. I have covered college football in some capacity forever. If you want to argue, fire away. I don't think there's a chance in hell Alabama is pushing Florida State around. Note that I think Alabama will win. I've said that for months. Alabama, could you name Florida State's starting defensive front? Could you name one guy? No. You're an Alabama homer. Get the hell out of here. I don't care who you think you are. Get the hell out of here. Let's see. Georgie, all right, buddy, go roll into your third cousin. Okay, Georgie, see you later. B. Ryder, Gray's Sports Almanac says Noles 32, Bama 21. Just saying. Quarterback, Bama. What does that even mean? Hussey and Cheyenne have yet to be mentioned by Norvell or White. Yeah, that's true, but I don't know how Florida State's trying to do that. It is what it is. Take your Miami ass somewhere else. I don't care. If you think you're just better, then go right ahead and say it, but you don't know crap about Bama either. Get out of here. Who the heck is this guy? This guy's an idiot. Will Berger, Ty Simpson is going to get blitzed like crazy, knocked around by this defensive front. I don't see an Alabama win happening at all. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't know how much Florida State's going to blitz. I really don't. I think Florida State is going to be a multiple defense, and that's up in the air. But Ty is an inexperienced QB, so maybe they will. But keep in mind, Caden Proctor, elite left tackle for Bama. You're going to have to create some kind of pressure somehow. You're probably not going to beat him much one-on-one for sure. Let's see. The title should have been Things I Don't Believe. Alabama won't blow out Florida State. Okay, fantastic. FSU lives rent-free in your head. The lack of exhaustion with your mouth breathing Cane fans must be bad for your health. Yeah, no doubt. Matthew, Bama's O-line is top in the country, and with Miami and 3 D line won't get much penetration. FSU's linebacker won't get past them either. Okay, you don't know crap. Miami's got a good O-line, so's Alabama. That has nothing to do with them pushing Florida State around. Florida State is massive. They are not going to get pushed around. You might beat them, but that's a different dynamic, and they're not going to get dominated either. DJ Furr, Conrad Hussey is no longer on the team. That is true. We've been discussing that. Mike Merrick, what's up, Brian and chat? Go Noles. What's up, Mike? Glad you're on the show, my friend. On that note, real quick, I'm going to take a break. I'm just going to hit a couple of buttons here, and we'll be right back here on Locked On Seminoles. All right, let's talk a little bit about my thoughts with regards to the offense. Alabama's defensive secondary is going to be really good. I mean, really, really good. But that's where something interesting has been developing. I've said it for a couple of weeks based on what I'd heard, and it sounds like it's going to come to fruition. Javen Boggs, true freshman out of Cocoa, Florida, it looks like he's going to start. At least that's the trend. Everything can change because there's still plenty of fall camp remaining. However, who else would it be? The transfer in for North Carolina? I haven't heard his name in a while. When was the last time we heard it? If it's not Boggs, who's it going to be? That's a lot of pressure. I'm curious to see how Boggs does because Bama's secondary, again, very, very experienced, very, very athletic, very, very long. They've got depth. They have all the ingredients to be really good. But that's an interesting development. Talking about the offense, Boggs has earned it. He's went in and outplayed some guys that were older. And he's also went in there and earned the respect based on reports from his teammates, not just coaches. That's a good sign. In addition, they already had Chroma in front of the media. I was watching some of his press conference today, and I've met him a few times. He's always been a really great kid with the media. When we interviewed him at like Under Armour Future 50, or I've seen him on a visit when he was at Auburn one time. Always a nice kid, but he says he's just coming in playing hard as he can and kind of like whatever happens is what happens. He's letting it rip. He might be their best running back. Here's what's wild about Chroma. And everybody in the country recruited him out of Lee County High School in Georgia, but he didn't enroll until this summer. That is rare. That is really, really rare. Florida State or anybody else that gets a kid in the summer, it's not normal for them to immediately hit the ground running and play right away, especially if Bama is going to be one of those games. Now, Gavin Sawchuk, Rodell Williams, and several other guys, Cam Davis, they're all good football players. They'll all contribute. And, of course, don't forget about my favorite guy, Jalen Lucas. They're all quite talented. But Chroma being talked about the way he has, already being up in front of the media, that's a really good sign. So with that, and the offensive line is very experienced. Florida State's got one of the most experienced offensive lines collectively. I know they haven't played together in the country. I think they'll run the ball pretty well, especially with Tommy being able to ad lib on a pass protection that didn't go well or something like that. I think it'll go pretty good for him. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be easy by any way, shape, or form to be consistent running the ball. So they're going to need some wild plays. And that's where Chroma might come in because he breaks tackles like crazy. But it is what it is. Tommy Castellanos is the key to the game. That is from Warren Hester. Like, there's a lot of truth in that. He can't turn it over. And getting the ball to Boggs, getting the ball to Chroma is just part of it. But Landon Thomas, Deuce Robinson, making sure that Squirrel White is involved. He's had a pretty good last week camp. All of those guys got to get the ball at the right times against a quality defense that is very well established in terms of how it's coached, but it's even better in terms of talent, in my opinion. So that's not an easy task. Let's see. Mario Nash, the O-line practices against the day one D tackle. That is true. It's going to be kind of surprising to me based on all reports. If Big Darryl doesn't go in the first round, somebody's going to take a chance on him early. He's 330 something and he can move. The O-line's got to practice against Darryl on the daily. It's probably not very much fun. That'll help them, and iron sharpens iron, as the old saying goes. Rock and Noles, smash that like button, everyone. Yes, please do. Like and subscribe. Make sure you're getting in here as often as possible. And if you're listening to this later on Apple, make sure you hit that automatic download. Georgie, that was in response to Matthew Bryan. Oh, no problem. No problem. My bad. Let's see. Will Daniel Lyons make a step up this season? I thought Daniel played pretty well early last year. This is from Yanni. I don't know if he's one of those guys. I'm trying to remember. Somebody correct me, but has Daniel been a guy that's been mentioned directly? And for the record, Coach White said, hey, I'm probably missing somebody, and he kind of went through names. I don't remember if he was one of them, but he was one of the better players, I thought, last year because he was the guy that had a lot more effort. Let's see. Kane thing 24. I think Florida State has a really good offensive coordinator. I think Gus is pretty good at it, especially with the run game. He's a pain to prepare for. Let's see. Georgie. Brian is in a mood, and I love it. I'm not playing around tonight, guys. I am very, very steadfast in what I believe. Brian yelling like Norvell. That's from John Shields. I don't know if I'm quite as loud as Norvell was in that press conference. That's still very weird. Let's see. King Lewis, Ty Simpson's a bum. I don't know if he's a bum, but he hasn't played much. Nobody really knows what he is. Matthew. Yeah, my bad. You know more. Florida State is going 16-0. No, Florida State is definitely not. I have picked him to go 7-5, 8-4. I'm as honest as anybody in the entire world about the team he covers. If you don't believe me, ask anybody in this chat. I let it rip. I do not care if somebody likes it. I do not care if somebody unsubscribes. I'm going to tell it like it is. If you don't like it, goodbye. I was just kidding, Kane thing. Well, that's fine. I am not. He is a pain to prepare for, and there's no doubt about it. Let's see. I didn't think they blitzed much in the opening quarter unless White sees a weakness or an exploit. Yeah, that's possible. I don't know how you just sit back the whole game against Bama, because any quarterback will eventually get in a rhythm. And I don't think Florida State will just consistently get pressure against Bama's front. They've got a time when they blitz. They need a little luck too. Don't blitz when they screen, stuff like that. They need to hit it just right, because otherwise it's going to be really, really difficult. I think that Bama's receivers are good. I think that they can take simple plays and make a lot of yards after the catch. Mario Nash, Bama says always struggled with running quarterback. Florida State will be a problem with Tommy. I don't doubt that at all. Let's see. Who are some of the star athletes we should watch for? If you're referring to Bama or are you referring to Florida State? I think for Bama, I mean, Ryan Williams' first 5 answers to that question. Nobody's covering that kid one-on-one consistently. But outside of that, to be honest with you, for Alabama, I'm not even sure which guy is going to be the main ball carrier, because I think they're going to rotate. And they also have Jeremy Bernard returning at receiver, and they got Horton. If I remember right, he's transferred to Bama. That's right. He's the other receiver. And they've got some other guys coming up too. Bama's depth chart, just kind of looking at it before the show, I noticed a few guys that I covered, like Hale. He was a really athletic wide receiver out of East Texas, Jalen Hale. He can fly. Rico Scott's a kid that can really fly. He's out of Pennsylvania. Those guys are backups. Latsier Brooks, another kid that can fly. He's out of New Jersey. They got some skill talent. How much do they mesh with a new quarterback? It's kind of like with Florida State. It's really, really difficult. And, let's see. Yanni, which players do you think will break out this season? Well, I think Boggs. I think that's pretty obvious. Obviously, Chroma, those two. As for another freshman, and I was writing some of these down so I didn't forget them before the show was over, but give some props to Mandrell and Daryl Desir, the true freshmen out of Norland High School. I believe they're at Norland this past year, down in Miami. They're getting a lot of run. They're going to play some. You got Chroma. You've got Kevin Sperry might have to play. That may not be a good thing if TC gets hurt, but we'll see. But the guy that probably hasn't been discussed enough in fall camp, by me at least, is Kevin Wynn. I've talked about him, and he was a dude. I thought he was the best player in the class. Another kid out of Georgia, 320-plus pounds. He's the backup to Darryl at nose guard already. He is an animal. Absolutely an animal. He was a guy that at the All-Star game out in Texas, they had to take him out of the defensive lineup when the other side of the ball for his team was running install because he blew up everything. They literally took him out of the practice, just had him stand over there. He is a horse. He's probably going to have some impact. BJ Gibson and all those freshmen/sophomore, redshirt freshman, sophomore receivers, all of them should play. Lil Wayne McCoy, Fryer. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that won't. Which one is the standout, though? I really wouldn't want to guess. It's hard to say because I don't think Deuce Robinson's going to come off the field a lot. I doubt Squirrel does. Maybe it's Elijah Moore. And it kind of depends on which guys play which spots. I don't know. Defensively, maybe one of the other young DBs, Kai Bates, probably at some point, I would imagine. He's a really smart kid. Knew him well from Edgewater High School in Orlando. He was elite student and just very savvy. Jabril Rawls sounds like he's a redshirt sophomore, but he's played some. But I think sounds like he might be a starter. KJ Kirkland, redshirt sophomore out of Jacksonville. He's a kid out of Raines High School. He was a great kid when I met him in high school. All those guys are taking that step up. But now the question is not who's going to break out. It's who's going to be able to rotate in so you can send guys in waves. And I don't know the answer to that. And it's an important one. On that note, I mentioned this recently. Just want to kind of throw this into this mix with this question. Florida State has a bunch of linebackers that are good. Elijah Herring sounds like he's the most likely starter, but do they really have 2 or 3 guys to key for each game that they can plug in against any kind of offense? That's a question I have, and I don't have any idea if there's an answer. It sounds like they got a whole bunch of good players, but do they have a dude? You need somebody that you can really depend on in any defense. At inside linebacker, Herring's the most likely, but what if he got banged up or when he's got to come out of the lineup? And who are the other guys that are really going to be able to step up and make plays? I need to hear definitive, 2 or 3 names. And Tony went through 6 or something like that the other day in his presser. To me, he's just trying to motivate. They're playing hard, but I'm not sure that they've figured it out yet. Maybe I'm reading into that wrong, but that was my take. Let's see here. We got Bob H. What happened to the old days when people talked about how difficult winning on the road was? No mention in the media about that game at Doak. That's why I brought this up. Bob, you're right. I totally agree. You can't just assume you're going to win in places like Florida State. I forget who it was. Somebody did bring that up. Like, might have been listening to somebody on the Cover 3 podcast or something. I can't remember, but it's not easy to win at Doak Campbell. It just never has been. Rhinos, Conrad Husky is no longer on the team. That is correct. Can you name some of the potential breakout players on both offense and the defense? We're talking about for Florida State. I just went through them. But for Alabama, I mean, they got more guys than they can shake a stick at. Like the guy that probably, just to throw it in there for Florida State fans too, Quay Russaw is the guy I'm most curious about for them. He's an edge rusher, played at Carver High School in Montgomery. He's a freaky athlete, 5-star by some people. Outside of him, I mean, they got so many players. I wish I know which running back it was probably going to be. Maybe Richard Young kind of gets some play. Daniel Hill, maybe. Those guys were super highly rated. Xavier Brown, a sophomore out of California, corner. Maybe Dejon Wee plays a little bit at corner. Alabama's got both, but we'll see. For Florida State, like I said, they got a bunch of guys. I've went through those pretty quick. Can Danzy be an every down receiver? At some point, right now, no. You got to remember, he played running back in high school, and he was a track athlete. He spent as much time, Mekhi has, running track as he has played football, if I was to guess. I went to see him at a practice at Florida High in Tallahassee before the start of his senior year. Super athlete, super athlete. But he was a kid that they had him return punts and stuff, and he just ran the ball. He wasn't running routes, really. You know, just some basic swing routes and stuff, but that's it. It's a complete start over. Do I think he's ready? No, I don't. So we'll see what happens, but my guess is he's a guy that's going to need quite a bit of time, and he's probably more of an option next year to be an every down player. This year, spot duty, jet sweep, fake pass, fake toss, just doing things like that, and maybe he ends up being on the kickoff team. Linebacker group is pretty deep. Jerry Wilson is DB1. Earl Little plays with his hair on fire. That's true. Kevin Wynn is a monster freshman who will play meaningful snaps this season. I'm very excited about all those things you just said, Jordy. There ain't no doubt. Warren Hester. Chroma is the man. Yeah, Chroma's going to be really good. There's no doubt about it. He's going to be really good. Chroma is grown man out there. That is from Mario Nash. Warren Chroma likes to contact. He's one of the better guys in terms of breaking tackles that I've seen in quite some time. I really think that Chroma's a guy that will do a really good job, and I mean a really good job, at getting through that first guy, even if it's head up, a lot of contact. He just breaks arm tackles, and even sometimes when he gets hit in the rig, like he finds a way to get around. Just really good at it. Let's see here. Georgie, on offense, Chroma is a dude. Boggs is really good. Tight end room looks good. Deuce and Squirrel are dynamic. Deuce is better athlete than Johnny Wilson with better hands. And Squirrel, and it cuts off. Squirrel is a twitchy burner. There it is. Yanni. What are your thoughts on Tommy showing both the passing ability of this past season and running of the season before? Last year, the offense that Tommy Castellanos played in was about as horrible a fit as there was. Why Bill O'Brien had Tommy try to play in that offense, I have no idea. Terrible idea. Bill O'Brien is a very stubborn guy. I've heard a lot of other things about him. I'll leave it at that. In terms of being just a pain to be around. And it's one of the reasons they sucked last year. You have to play to your strengths. Player doesn't adjust the offense. The offense has to adjust the player, especially quarterback. Don't put a running, mobile threat quarterback in a read and react system after the snap. It's stupid. But that's what they did at Boston College. So Tommy ended up leaving there. I don't think it was a good situation the way he did it, but something tells me that Bill O'Brien, from all things I've heard about him, didn't make it real easy to stay either. So as they say, a little bit of fault on both sides of the equation there. Matthew, you don't know Bama, blah, blah, blah. Your takes are 100%. Dude, you have no idea who I am. No idea. If I'm not a Bama homer, you don't like it. Goodbye. Bill Reeder, Bama's last 14 games are 9-5. Bama's last 7 games away from Tuscaloosa, 2-5. Welcome to Doak. That's a great stat line. I did not know that. 2-5 in their last 7 contests away. That's pretty impressive. Mario Nash, 2 of the starters on the O-line have already beat Bama once in their career. I believe the confidence is pretty high with those guys up front. It should be. They're experienced. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If you see Michael Danzy, you better hope there's someone on his hip when the ball is snapped. World-class speed and athleticism. Let me go one step further. On his hip isn't good enough. He'll be the fastest player on the field. He is sub 45 in the 400 meters. That is insane. He is a world record kind of guy before he's done with track. He's that kind of speed. So at his hip at the line, you're going to be 5 yards behind him in 20 yards. He is elite. Whether or not he knows the route tree, whether he knows how to break off routes, read coverages, all that stuff, the football aspect, that's what he's got to figure out. We'll see what he does, but they're going to have to get him the ball at least a few times this year, I would think. People don't see how good Florida State will be at the skill positions over the next couple of seasons. O-line, quarterback remains to be seen, though. That's fair. Florida State in skill talent, just a general comment here, there's never an excuse. Never an excuse. DB, even DN is kind of a skill position. Wide receiver, running back, and to a certain degree, tight end. Florida State should never not be a top 20 team at any of those positions. And most of the time, they should be top 10 in all of them. Historically, and it's by a bazillion miles, Florida State's weakest position is offensive line. Not even in question. They've had some great ones like Walter Jones, Brett Williams, etc. They've had some great guys. But that's not the consistency like with D-line, corner, the receiver room, like Florida State's positions at other spots are just on a whole nother level. And to be honest with you, I think that's the case with most teams down south. There's a lot of track athletes down here. It's easy to recruit, and it's not that hard. It's just not that hard at all to recruit top-notch athletes to Tallahassee. When you think about all the players that are close to Florida State within a 5-hour radius, it should never be considered that difficult. And I don't think that's going to change either. So if they get good O-line play this year, they'll surprise some teams. If they don't, it'll be more difficult. When we come back, we're going to continue on the discussion with Florida State and Bama. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your shot on MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or even ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before the week 1 kicks off, this is your moment. So it could be anything, like Patrick Mahomes for MVP. Maybe you've got the Bills winning the Super Bowl. Maybe you've got playoff predictions for something else. It's so much fun with the NFL because it's so competitive. There's a lot of ways to go. You could even talk about individual player races for Defensive Player of the Year or anything else. And if you visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures, because futures day is just one day and only one day, you've got that opportunity. Don't miss it. Again, the day for that is August 26th. FanDuel, play your game. All right, let's get back into the chat here just a little bit. Let's see what we got. Luke, if Florida State upsets Bama, do you think that would put them in the top 25 in for week 2 or not yet? Absolutely. There's probably top 15 or so. Bama's a top 10 team. Everybody knows Florida State has talent, but nobody really knows whether to make higher tails of that. So, and to that point, I'm friends with Bud Elliott, and I respect the heck out of Bud. He's got the blue chip ratio. I've been using that kind of system. We got the same teams at the top who can win it, blah, blah, blah. He made a comment that I want to note the other day on the Cover 3 podcast. If you don't listen to Cover 3 podcast, I think it's a lot of fun. I'm not even a gambler by trade, but it's still a lot of injury news, a lot of information. It's pretty good. He said he thinks Bama is going to blow Florida State out. And Bud is a Florida State fan and grad. Ironically, he got his law degree from Alabama, but he is not an Alabama guy. First-hand knowledge, he is not. He thinks Bama is going to beat Florida State. And one of the main reasons is he said they've had a lot of guys banged up from spring. He thinks that's going to hurt them, going to slow down the offense. But everything I've heard here lately is that Florida State's offense has been playing pretty well. To that point, Coach White wasn't very happy, being kind, with what was going on regarding the defense and the accountability of some players. If you haven't watched Coach White's most recent press conference, go check that out. I can only explain it so much. You have to physically hear it and see it. Like his body language when talking about some of that, he was not a happy camper. And it wasn't like he was just mad at the whole defense. It was more individualized, but it's pretty interesting. Let's see. Mr. Reader, August 30th, hottest day of the year in Florida, 95 degrees, 93% humidity, 3:30 kickoff. It's going to be rough on both teams. I think it'd be a little worse for Bama. They're in northern Alabama, but still, they're in the South. Most of those kids get it. It will be brutal. If you do not hydrate, if you do not prepare correctly as a player, you will not do well in that weather. Brian, how is special teams? That is from John Shields. I haven't heard anything about Florida State special teams. If anybody's got anything, fire away. I've got nothing. Now, this is one of the things about Coach Norvell just basically telling the media to pound sand and not come in. We've heard little nooks and crannies that, a couple field goals made or whatever. But who's on the punt team? Who's returning kicks and punts? Are they really good at trying to get after punt? But I have no idea. And if you're going to upset Alabama, this is a great question. It's a great question. You've got to either block a punt, get or at least affect one, and maybe go off the side of his foot, get a 15-yard punt. It's kind of like a turnover. You need something like that to give you a short field for at least one score. At least one score. Special teams would be a great way to do that. Let's see here. Thanks, Brian. As a Miami fan, I want FSU to be good. Thank you for all the hard work. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Mario Nash, yes, senior. Let's see. Georgie. All I like, Luke, is that if Bama were to somehow lose this game, then DeBoer might not make it back to the tarmac. I don't think they're going to fire him. His contract is way too big. Besides that, who would they hire? If FSU beats Bama, which I fully believe they will, then they will win the next 12 games. This is not the 24 team you will see. That is from MKHMWN. I'm not buying that Florida State's going undefeated. You're on your own on that one, brother. Let's see. Ty Simpson was 5-9 under Saban. I don't know much about the record. He didn't start any games, though, I don't think. Nicholas, Clemson seems like they're going to be really good. Clemson, to me, is the most likely loss on the schedule because it's in Death Valley. That's a tough place to play. Let's see. Georgia, so did Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State is a wild game. That's when it happens, man. If you take teams for granted, that's what happens. You get beat. Yanni, odds on Ty Simpson having over one pick. I don't think it's terrible. 20-25% is what I would say the likelihood is. The reason I say that it's not higher than that is I don't think they're going to put him in a lot of tough spots. Even if they get behind, I think they'll be very conservative with throwing it. They won't throw to the middle of the field. It'll be screens and bombs. They're going to avoid the middle of the field like the plague. Let's see. Warren Hester. Alabama lost to Vandy last year. That is a fact. B. Ryder. DeBoer is 9-4. All L's away from Tuscaloosa. Welcome to Doak. Let's see. Vandy beat Bama. That is true. Georgie. Miami lost a game at home that they had won if they had just kneeled the ball. That is something I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life. That is one of the dumbest coaching decisions I have ever seen. Do you think if FSU goes 7-5, Norvell keeps his job? I think he keeps his job if they go 5-7. And the reason is $50 million. Florida State doesn't have the money to buy him out. They're all in on him coming back next year to otherwise prove it. That's what I believe. Get that guy out of here. Mario Cristobal made it to the Pop-Tart Bowl. That's from Georgie. That is true. Miami's 58 home game streak. Alabama 57. FSU 52. Doak third best home field advantage in college football. It's one of the best. When Doak is loud, man, it's crazy. I rewatched just for fun the choke at Doak yesterday. That place is not like the fans stuck around even when Florida State was getting blitzkrieged. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. I heard Chroma reminded him of Ricky Waters. What say you? Ricky Waters is probably faster. He was before a lot of people on this that are listening to this probably know, but he was late 80s through about 2000. He played at Notre Dame. Then he played for 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles, and Seahawks. He was electric, probably a little faster, but Chroma's ability to break tackles like Ricky, very similar. That first guy, neither one of them do very well. Georgie, Bobby Bowden has more ACC titles in Miami since they joined. That's sad. Miami still has 0. Unbelievable. Big Ten is on top. Right now, they're pretty good. At the top of the board, Big Ten, their top 4 teams, I would agree with that. Let's see. FSU all-time versus SEC, 72, 71, and 6, 45, 30, and 2 since 1976. Let's see. Beat LSU twice. Georgie, our biggest weakness is the newest of it all. New players, schemes, coaches. Join that to the lack of depth, then you don't have a lot of room for true success. Success being ACC championship and in the playoff. I agree, and that's why I'm not picking Florida State to go to the playoff. I think they're a 7-5, 8-4 team. I'm leaning towards 8-4, but they don't have enough proven players, in my opinion, because of all the things you just said, to be that team. That's just my opinion. Let's see. Georgie, Deuce was taking reps at returner. I laughed at the ridiculousness of it. He's 6'4", 6'5", at least. I don't think he's going to be returning much. Let's see. Yanni. In your opinion, now looking at Chromahawk decision to leave, do you think it was wrong? I heard it was more them just wanting NIL. Once it gets into the NIL stuff, I'm out. It's just the way it is, man. There's no way around it. What are your thoughts on our D-line depth? It's pretty good, and it matches what they're trying to do defensively. This is from Rod Stoudemire. But I also think Florida State's ability to rush the passer is the biggest question mark. You got Jaden Jones. You got James Williams. You got the Desir twins. But who are the guys that are going to come off the edge beyond that? I don't know. I haven't heard much else. We'll see, but Florida State needs to be able to get in there and make something happen. Not just on the edge. They got to get some D tackle pressure beyond Darryl. Daniel Lyons, KJ Sampson. Somebody else has got to get in there and be consistent with pressure. Now I want to talk a little bit about the last bit before I wrap it up. Is anybody really buying the Miami hype? Kind of want to just talk about something else besides the Bama game for a second. Been a lot of people thinking that Miami is going to be the second best team in the ACC, and they might be, but they got Notre Dame early on. They got Florida. They've got to play a schedule that's pretty good, but they always lose those games. You're like, where did that come from? Georgia Tech 2 years in a row. The Syracuse game, they're up 21-0. Do we believe in Mario is the first question. As a game day coach, and I do not. He's not proven it, so why would I? Remember, the Stanford game several years ago when he was at Oregon, it's the first time he didn't take a knee and it cost him. They lost that game too. Then the Georgia Tech game a couple of years ago as Miami coach, I'm not buying it. But here are the other questions I have about the Miami team this year, and this includes coming to Doak. Carson Beck, is he ready to take hits? I guarantee you Florida, and especially Notre Dame, they blitz like crazy. They're going to smack him around a little bit. Is he going to be able to get up off the mat after getting hit? I need to see it. That elbow injury he had was nasty. Don't wish that on anybody, but it's football. If he's ready to handle that game in, game out, they can be 9-3 or better. But if he either A, just gets hurt, or B, he's shying away, backing up when he's got guys in his face, they're 8-4, 7-5. They've got new receivers. Their transfers are pretty good, got a couple, but they don't have the same kind of depth they did before. They don't have the same kind of playmakers, and they don't have that big boundary receiver that is ready on the outside. They don't. To that point, this is very, very important. Miami, they're going to be a run-heavy team, really good offensive line, top 5 in the nation, in my opinion. you still got to be able to pass against the better teams. They're not going to come into Doak and push Florida State around. They're not going to push Florida around. They're not going to push Notre Dame around. He's going to have to be a big part of that. And their secondary last year was a sieve. They got all new guys. Who knows? Got a new defense coordinator. Wide receiver depth I already touched on. And then the one that nobody talks about, tight end. They had some good tight ends. They're gone. The mainstay tight ends. Now, they've got one guy that's going to be a sophomore. He was a good player last year, but he's more of an H-back fullback, not a real tall guy. He's about 6'1". They don't have that 6'5", 255-pound tight end with experience, proven ability. So we'll see with them. But what's everybody think about Miami? Let's see here. From Nole Nation. Hell no, they said that last year. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, it's nothing personal against Miami, but like they never seize their talent and get there. They still haven't won an ACC title. They still haven't. How is that possible? It's just insane. So to make a long story short, I don't think that Miami's going to be bad this year by any means. I just think they have more pitfalls than what's been let off. Their D-line will be good. Their O-line will be good. Their running back room's really good. Got a few receivers that I like their transfers. They got a lot of questions in terms of tight end, don't know. Defensive secondary, don't know. Not sure about linebacker depth. We need to see all those things. Defensive tackle, maybe, maybe not. Let's just see. James Davis, Miami will have a season like FSU did last year, not 2-10, but not anything like they think. I mean, if they went 7-5, it would not surprise me. Let's see. They have Tulane's tight end. Yeah, Bauman, 6'4". He was not a highly recruited kid. Ended up at Tulane. He transferred over. He's pretty good. Ironically, his brother was at Notre Dame the last several years. He just hurt his knee, and he retired. They were going to play against each other, their brothers. Let's see. Yanni. Miami's secondary is always a problem for them. I don't understand that. How can your secondary at Miami, of all places, be bad? How hard can it be to recruit DBs to Miami? You're in South Florida. It's just amazing. Last year, they couldn't run a zone defense. Couldn't do it. They sucked. So it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much to everybody that showed up tonight and checking it out. I'll probably do a few more live shows over the next few weeks. May do several. It just depends on the news. For those that missed it, Conrad Hussey is no longer with the Florida State program. Just want to mention that again. That's a pretty big deal. That's one of your potential quote-unquote starting defensive backs coming into fall camp. It didn't work out and didn't look like he was going to play much. He has left the ball club. I don't know the reason. I don't know if it's something that is happened personally or if he just was mad about the playing. Again, I don't know. But Conrad Hussey is no longer with Florida State. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles. We'll be around tomorrow. And this show, by the way, I'm going to cut it up into two parts. Part 1, part 2, each 25, 30 minutes. And we're going to put those up on the tomorrow morning. And I'll do that with anything else we do as far as live shows moving forward. So please hit that like, hit that subscribe, share this podcast, comment down below. And if you're on Apple, please hit that automatic down below. This has been Locked On Seminoles.